There are 7 days till the MAT. Here's what you should be doing over those 7 days to maximize your chances of getting a score of 90 plus in the MAT. And that's coming from me, Jamin, an Oxford University maths graduate who now helps students all across the globe get into studying maths at Oxford and Cambridge. Tip number one, practice your explanation skills. This is in particular for the long form questions. Obviously, the MAT is 25 multiple choice questions, 2 long questions. Multiple choice questions, there's lots of tips and tricks there, but in fact, a lot of the stuff I talked about a couple of weeks ago in my TMUA video, advice video, applies here. But more specifically for the long problems, I want you to practice your explanation skills. Likelihood is you're rubbish at it. I'm going to be very open. Likelihood is you're not that good. And that's normally, from what I see with students and people that get in touch with me, that's the thing that they struggle with. How can you practice? It depends on on a scale of how rubbish to how good you are. If you're nearer the rubbish end, firstly, practice just casually talking about maths. So, uh, trying to maybe explain a solution, explain a problem, whatever, and use your fingers, use your, if you're doing it on a computer, use your mouse to point at things, to draw shapes, draw diagrams to aid your explanation. But just drag a friend, drag a teacher, whatever, someone who is of a similar mathematical ability, and explain a solution to a problem to them. And you want it to, the reason you want this is to practice for the long questions where you've got to explain things using words. Now, what's the next step after kind of giving yourself the aid of using diagrams? The reason I say that that's an aid is obviously in the MAT, you can't point at things. Well, you can point at things, but the person marking it doesn't know what you're pointing to. So you've got to use your words. If you're going to try to refer to something or refer to a shape or something, you've got to use your words to do that. So that's the next level. So see if you can try and explain, for example, a proof of Pythagoras' theorem without drawing a picture, but just describing the pictures that you would draw. And that there's a skill to that. Then the next level after that is just practice then typing that. So obviously the MAT being on a computer, you can only, for those type questions, the only like mathsy things that you'll need are like plus, minus, divide, multiply, equals. No fancy like integrations or derivatives or crazy kind of math symbols. That's something just to bear in mind. So those questions are a lot more explanation based. If you want some questions to practice with, my advice would be go back to the old MAT format and look at the question fives. These are what I normally call the wildcard questions. Normally in those, there's quite a fair amount of explanation required. So that's my first tip. And that explanation, all the practice you do now is just an investment for the future when you're actually going to be doing the interviews as well. Because in the interviews, you're actually going to be explaining and talking out loud. So it's actually a win-win. It's also actually slowly starting you on your preparation for the interviews. That being said, I'm actually running an interview preparation program. So last year I had 13 students, 12 of them received Oxbridge offers. And so this year I thought I'd do a similar thing where I run an interview preparation program. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'll leave a link for that in the description below. Just click on that and you can book in a free intro call with me just to see if that would be something that would be good for you. The second tip that I have is to ensure you have multiple ways of answering the multiple choice problems. So by this stage, I expect you to have done all the past papers. That's a given. If you haven't, do the past papers. Like, please do the past papers. Now, let's assume you've done all the past papers. What should you be doing? Take those past papers, go through the multiple choice questions, and ask yourself how you solved it. Likelihood is you either derived the answer, and what do I mean by that? Well, that just basically means if you had covered up the options, your method would have still worked. You kind of just worked through, did it the A level way, maybe perhaps, where you just kind of start from the question and then end up with, oh, x equals 7, that's option C. So that means C is the correct answer. Or you could have done it by elimination, where you read the question, read the options, and then you, via various arguments, eliminate options and only leave yourself with one option. Or perhaps you did some kind of crossbreed of those two, where it's half derivation, half elimination. Now, the ones where there's any form of elimination involved, what I suggest you do is ask yourself, how else could you have got to that answer? So how else could you have got from the question to the answer? Yes, you did use elimination, and maybe that was the optimal way to do it. But you want to ask yourself, well, if I was forced to, could I have derived the answer? In 99% of MAT questions, any solution that's there, you can derive the answer. There's one that I've got in my mind. I can't remember what year it was, but it was the one to do with finding the number of lattice points inside a triangle. From memory, that one you couldn't derive without doing some ridiculously big numerical computation, which would only be sensible to do via a computer. That one you were left with like two options, D and E, and you had to use the fact that the answer was even or it was odd. I can't remember, but that was the technique there. But you couldn't have derived the correct answer purely from that. But in most scenarios, you can take the options, and even if you did initially do it by elimination, go back and ask yourself, okay, if I was forced to do this by derivation, how would I have got to the correct answer? And that's going to build your skill set, because you're then just going into the MAT with more skills, more ways to approach a problem. But B, I think it just allows you to go, okay, cool, I did do this by elimination, but I'm not always relying on it. Because sometimes you might fall into the trap with multiple choice problems of just relying on elimination. That's no good. So that's my second tip for what to be doing over the last week between now and the MAT. My third and final tip is take care of yourself. And I genuinely mean that. I've been through the struggle that you've been through, that you're going through and about to go through. It's enduring, it's difficult, it can take a really big kind of mental toll on yourself. It's probably the most pressure that you've felt under in a while. Likelihood is GCSEs, you would have felt some pressure, but they didn't feel as bad or as tough or as difficult as the MAT. In fact, your A levels will probably feel less intense than this is now, because this is your future. I mean, A levels partly are as well, but getting into Oxford, if you get that offer from Oxford, the A levels are the easy part of that, making that offer into a place. So it can feel stressful. So take care of yourself. Genuinely, try and eat healthily. If you're, I presume your parents or family, whatever, cook for you, if you normally eat a bunch of junk food, tell them, no, this week we're eating healthily. And maybe, make it fun. Make it foods that you enjoy and whatever. Ask your parents to make that for you for this week. That's one thing. Also, drink healthily. So if you do drink alcohol, do try and avoid that for this week. Drink plenty of water. And the most important thing, sleep. Do make sure you get 8 hours of sleep, ideally. It doesn't have to be exactly 8, but a good night's sleep every single day, not just the night before, but every single day in the run up to it. You want to kind of make your circadian rhythms at ease on exam day. There's no point just getting 8 hours sleep the night before and your body's kind of still like a little bit, maybe you've been pulling all-nighters except that last night and it's still like a bit frazzled by the time of day. You want your body to be nice, know what it's doing, it's in a rhythm, and so you can hit exam day with the only thing in front of you being that exam. You don't have to worry about tiredness or feeling unwell or whatever. Going into that exam, you're going to absolutely smash it, and I'm sure you will. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see any specific videos or problems to do with the MAT over this last week. Again, I'm here to help you. And as I say, regarding the interview masterclass, I know a lot of you, the interview preparation program, I know a lot of you will be considering and thinking about the interviews now, which is very important because it is the next hurdle. You don't want to leave it too late. Get in touch, book a call with me, and we can get you on board as soon as possible.